Hello, happy to see you back on Quang Nam Today, where distinctive features of this land of love are shown. The first edition of 2018 will tell us the story about a local traditional craft which creates downy, soft, and delicate textile fabric that can be used in many kinds of costumes, especially the traditional velvety áo dài of Vietnam, like I'm wearing now. Yes, let's get a chance to learn more about the silk weaving tradition in Quang Nam right now.
Mulberry growing and silkworm feeding is a traditional profession with a long history of development in Quang Nam. Therefore, it is not surprising that the images of mulberry and silk in Quang Nam have left a bold mark in books, writings, and compositions. It is not only well known nationwide, but also impresses many foreigners. One of the most outstanding examples is the book Sudan Trong, which means the southern region of Vietnam, by Cristoforo Bori, an Italian who lived in Quang Nam from 1618 to 1621, about 400 years ago. The book writes, "The South has plenty of tall mulberry trees grown in large form, where people pick the leaves to feed silkworms, and this place is very rich of silk." Silk-making craft at that time was also present in many folk songs and poets. Quảng Nam có lụa Phú Bông, có khoai trà đóa, có sông Thu Bồn, which means Quảng Nam has Phú Bông silk, trà đóa, batata, and Thu Bồn River. Thu Bồn is the mother river of Quang Nam, originating from the majestic Ngọc Linh mountain range. Before immersing into the sea, this river has given Quang Nam the alluvial mudflats and fertile riverside land strips, which is very suitable to grow mulberry trees as a material for silkworm feeding, silk reeling, and weaving. Mulberry growing and silkworm feeding profession derives from the fairy tale colored affinity between Crown Prince Nguyễn Phước Lan, the son of Lord Nguyễn Phước Nguyên, who is the governor of Quang Nam province at that time, and the mulberry baking girl Đoàn Thị Ngọc, the daughter of Mr. Đoàn Công Nhạn, a rich man of Chim Sơn village. It is said that his daughter was clever, sang beautifully, and had the talent of communication. It was the moonlit night when she was 16 years old. She was picking mulberry leaves on the land belt along the west bank of Thu Bồn River, while Nguyễn Phước Lan was sailing by. Her charming voice of singing from the mulberry land captivated the dandy, and they got married after that. The daughter of the Đoàn family later became Queen Hiếu Chiu, and the people of Quang Nam adored her as the Queen of Silk because of her great contribution in encouraging people to follow the profession of silk making. According to many researchers, the Vietnamese who came to settle in the South region knew how to combine their own experiences with the silkworm nursing technique of Champa people and the weaving techniques of Chinese to create higher quality items which were famous throughout the country and internationally. Author Lê Quý Đông wrote, "Quang Nam people has learned the techniques from the North Chinese people and passed the craft through generations, creating very beautiful silk, gossamer, or samite." From the 16th to 18th centuries, while Chinese silk was produced in large quantities and dominated the world market, the silk of Vietnam was still highly valued. Many Westerners to Quang Nam couldn't hide their surprise about the popular use of silk clothes among local residents. Christopher Bori also wrote, "The Southland has so much silk that the working and lower classes use it every day," while Alessandro said that there was so much silk that people also use it to knit nets and braid hawsers. Silk was made not only to meet the domestic demand but also for export because of good quality, cheap price, being highly consumable and profitable. Quang Nam opens up a very prosperous economic area. The natural conditions in the central has given its large plains and many great resources of the mountains. It can be said that Quang Nam is the most favorable economic center of the South at that time. Therefore, the Nguyễn laws held much account to this land. From 1939 to 1945, while the silk market of Vietnam abroad was almost frozen, the demand of domestic markets has become a motive force for the development of Vietnamese handicraft silk production. Silkworm nursing, which is a long-standing tradition in Quang Nam, has grown the most in this period. In parallel with cotton weaving, Gò Nổi area of Dien Ban district and some communes on the southern bank of Thu Bon River in Duy Xuyên district became the silk center of Quang Nam in the 20s and 40s of the 20th century. Silk weaving villages with thousands of looms came up in Bảo An, La Thọ, Thanh Quýt. This is also the time when yarn and fabric markets emerged, such as Thanh Quýt Market, Bảo An Market, Phong Thử Market in Điện Bàn or Quảng Huế Market in Đại Lộc. An important event which created new breakthroughs in the textile history of Quang Nam is when silkworm feeders then could produce a kind of cocoon which gave the very thin threads. This production provided a sufficient supply to the domestic market, so they no longer needed to import yarn from China. In addition, in 1939, when Mr. Lê Đồng Lợi, after visiting a French silk weaving facility in Giao Thủy, made a spinner which reformed the traditional way of silk reeling, the weaving profession in Quang Nam reached to its peak of prosperity. Both Thi Lai and Mã Châu carpenters have made improvements to the looms to make them more elaborate, then popularized them throughout Quang Nam. The advancements from hand looms to paddle looms had increased the productivity 3 to 4 times. As a result, the size of the fabric also increased from 3 or 4 inches to 9 inches, sometimes up to 1.2 meters. These new looms could also weave fine and shiny textile products that are very competitive with the imported ones. They are sold throughout the country from north to south. The Silk Road through Hoi An port, coupled with the dynamic nature of the locals, was an important factor to help Quang Nam to become a center of silk production, making the weaving craft develop throughout the centuries.
Cái đô thị Hội An như chúng ta biết ấy, là nằm ở cửa sông Thu Bồn.
Hoi An ancient town is located at the estuary of Thu Bon River. It used to be a port town since the kingdom of Champa. This is an extremely favorable location near the estuary and coastal central areas which are close to the maritime route of the world. That way is called Silk Road on the sea, which existed from very early through the 7th to the 8th century. This is the way that Oriental and Western merchants usually travel and stop by. However, due to the fluctuations of the times, the silk industry in Quang Nam also encountered many ups and downs, sometimes seemingly deadlocked. Many weaving villages that used to be boisterous with the clacking looms now become silent. The green mulberry land are shrinking and shriveled. Cold cocoon boiling furnaces and dusty looms are no more used. Silk reeling craft is gradually fading away, concerning many locals and people who have been with it for a long time. Looking at the tragedy of the silk weaving tradition of the homeland, many Quang Nam people have made the great effort, worked together and joined hands to build a silk village in Tân An Ward, Hoi An City, to gradually restore and introduce the value of traditional silk production in Quang Nam. The silk village has chosen its own way of doing business, thus associating silk development with tourism and using tourism to promote the profession. This is the way of using culture as the foundation for business, and in turn business will create momentum for the development of culture. Silk Village, a suggestive name that opens a space of its own characteristics. The collection of century-old mulberry trees is perhaps one of the most unique features here. In addition, The Silk Village has also collected the textile machines that Champa residents are using, or wood weaving machines from the early 20th century, and some rare silkworm breeds which are at risk of being extinctive. As such, the Silk Village is both home to precious genetic resources of mulberry and silkworm breeding and a place to preserve traditional silk production processes. Vocational orientation and activities are also organized here. Visitors to the village will have a chance to learn about the whole process from growing mulberry, feeding the silkworm, to silk reeling and weaving. Those services will help them to have a general view about the history of the country and the creativity in the silk production of the ancestors. Silk Village also actively offered new designs to create a wide range of silk products to meet the diverse market's requirements, increasing the value added. This is an important factor for the development of technology and export value, as well as the brand of Quang Nam Silk.
Efforts of Quang Nam people in the craft's preservation and the prospect of silk weaving tradition have wrapped up today's episode. Thank you for your accompanying. You can always log on the website qrt.vn to track up our programs. Goodbye and see you next time.